Mr. President, members of the legislature, what we're seeing here is the result of haste. I tried to read these bills as they come across the floor, but I cannot examine, analyze, and evaluate every one of them. I have stated earlier that I'm not going to assume everybody's responsibility. This bill ought to have been given much more rigorous consideration on general file. Currently, there are 9 members on this commission, 3 each from each of the 3 congressional districts. At least, well, not under the new language, it would say at least, but 2 of those people would have to have experience in financing public projects or something to that effect. This change that's being offered would reduce that number from 9 to 8. There will be no consideration given to the boundaries of the 3 congressional districts. The new language says at least 2 of those 8 citizens will have this experience in financing. Currently, there is no consideration given when members are elected from those 3 congressional districts to acres, rivers, streams, lakes, trees, livestock, homesteads, or any other non-human factor. The reason each state, regardless of its geographic size or population, is guaranteed 2 U.S. senators is because of a compromise that had to be made between the small states and the large states when the United States was being constructed. To assure the small states that at least 1 house in the 2-house government would give them the same relative strength as the large states having much more population. Each state is guaranteed 2 U.S. senators. In the House, everything is based strictly on population. But it was that hellish so-called compromise which demeaned black people. Those of us being owned in the South as property, could not vote, were deemed less than human beings. But for the purpose of representation to this slaveholding, vicious South, every one of us, those of my complexion and origin, would be the equivalent of 3/5 of a person, so that the South could have additional representation in the federal government based on those of my people who were enslaved. Those kind of compromises are straight from the nether regions, but nevertheless, in politics, such compromises must be made to achieve political ends. Currently, there is no basis for this proposal that is before us now that Senator Hansen is bringing. When we are redistricting for the legislature, in states where they have 2 houses, there was a period of time when geographical considerations were looked at. The U.S. Supreme Court said for the House in each state, everything would be based strictly on population. 1 person, 1 vote. If you had an entity with 500 population and another with 100 population, you cannot allow the entity with 100 population to have the same voting strength as that with 500. So you prorated. A point was reached where the U.S. Supreme Court then said the Senate in these 2 House legislatures also must be elected on the basis of population, not geography or anything else. I think what is being presented by LB 291 is inappropriate. And now that it has been called to my attention, I am in a position where I must resist it. Thank you, Mr. President.